Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have another gripping episode of Crime Talk, the most unbiased, fact-driven channel on the internet. Now, we're thrilled to have you join us for a riveting show packed with the latest in true crime and legal intrigue. Today, we dive into the lineup of compelling stories. Unsealing the Secrets. That's right. A judicial peek behind the curtain in the Kohberger case. Some new developments. Quadruple murder suspect captured. That's right. Austin Drummond, accused of killing 4 and abandoning their baby girl on a front lawn. He's now in custody. Florida's Romeo, triple wife Tangle. That's right. A bizarre case of bigamy ends in probation and, well, a little bit of public scorn. Ghislaine Maxwell, her club fed controversy. Apparently, the fellow inmates don't like that she's there. We have This Day in Legal History, a look back at pivotal moments in the justice system. We have our quote of the day, and we'll share a thought-provoking quote on the integrity of police officers, setting the stage for our ever-popular dumb criminal of the day. Buckle up for the episode filled with facts, analysis, and the unfiltered truth. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, and hit that little bell for notifications. Now, I apologize for not doing a show yesterday. It was just one of those days where everything got away from us. We had an emergency pre-trial conference hearing on a homicide trial that we start next week because an issue has come up. So I had to do that, then drive an hour and a half to another jurisdiction, take care of a plea where an attorney and a client went into a courtroom and, well, only the attorney came out. Tough day, but that's what happens when you do bad things. Only to drive another hour and a half back to the Denver courthouse to be in a motions hearing for the next 4 hours. So yes, it was a busy day. And when I got home, the lovely Miss Kristen said, "Man, you look really tired." I was. I think I was happy that I stayed up past 8:45 before I called it a night and said, "I'm going to bed." That's how tired I was. Anyway, we digress. Now let's get to the docket. Before I do so, let me remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com. Sign up for that background subscription today. When you do, you'll be able to do a background search on anyone here in the United States, and you're going to get a plethora of information on the person that you are searching. Now remember, whether you want to do one search or 1,000 searches, you can do it. The report is literally prepared while you wait, and it is emailed to you, and you can get updates if you request when new information becomes available that you be notified. You're going to get information related to social media presence. You're going to find out whether the person has multiple phone numbers. You're going to find out if they have email addresses. You're going to find out, are they married? Are they divorced? Do they have a criminal history? Are they on one of those registries we hear so much about? Yes. Go to crimetalksearch.com and sign up today. You're going to be happy that you did. All right, so let's go ahead and open the record for Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. And first on the docket, Unsealing the Secrets, a little peek in the Kohberger case. So in the ongoing saga of the case of State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger, where obviously Bryan Kohberger has pled guilty in regards to the 2022 murders of 4 University of Idaho students. The district court in the 4th Judicial District has issued an order that cleverly balances transparency with the guarded gates of justice. Dated August 4th of 2025, this order from the administrative district judge methodically addresses the review of sealed documents, employing a reverse chronological approach, starting from the most recent filings and working backwards, as if unwinding a tightly coiled scroll to reveal hidden truths without prematurely spilling the ink. The court order establishes a rigorous protocol for unsealing records, requiring both the prosecution and the defense to articulate any objections with precision. And the parties must not only specify opposition to the unsealing, but also justify why the redactions fall short as an alternative, providing detailed legal and factual rationales. Mere citation to court rules are deemed insufficient. Instead, responses must resemble a well-argued brief identifying each document by its filing date, and sequential number for the designated group. Such replies, including notices of no objection, if applicable, are due within 14 days of the court's notification for each batch under review. Now, the inaugural set comprises 43 documents spanning from July 24th, 2025 to June 12th of 2025, encompassing a diverse array of filings. Notable among them are the poignant exhibits from a July 23rd, 2025 sentencing hearing, including photographs of the deceased victims, multiple orders amending no contact provisions, sealing exhibits tied to discovery requests, sheriff returns on witnesses, a defendant's guilty plea advisory form, and various motions, replies, and orders related to the alternate perpetrator witness list and investigative access. Many bear the sealed designation, hinting at sensitive material such as expert disclosures, ex parte filings, and evidentiary analyses, elements that could pivot the narrative of the high-profile case. Now, one might observe the irony in the process designated to unseal secrets while demanding such sealed, tight justifications for keeping them hidden, as if the court is playing a sophisticated game of judicial hide-and-seek. Yet this structured methodology underscores a commitment to due process, ensuring that the scales of justice tip toward openness only when fortified by reasoned argument. As the review progresses, it promises incremental revelations, potentially illuminating facts of a case that have captivated public scrutiny since its inception. Well, stakeholders and observers alike await the parties' responses, which could either unlock these vaults or reinforce their locks, all while maintaining the delicate equilibrium between confidentiality and the public's right to know. Now, ladies and gentlemen, have stated this before. I don't think any of these documents should have been sealed, with the exception of perhaps psychological evaluations. Now, this order that the court has imposed starts off with the state's exhibits at the sentencing hearing, but it also goes through everything as it relates to motions hearings and objections, and noted specifically the third-party alternate suspect filings. Now, obviously, the court denied them, and you can redact the names, but I believe that everybody should be entitled to this particular information in this case. Now, speaking of public disclosure, it has come to my attention, based upon requests to obtain the files from the Moscow Police Department, that to obtain all of the documents that are going to be made available, well, $20,000. I am pondering, I am ruminating over whether spending that kind of money to get the files on something that may or may not have a treasure trove of information. Obviously, we know that Bryan Kohberger has pled guilty. So like I said, we'll try to decide whether it's worth spending that kind of money. We'll figure something out, I guess. And anyway, moving on, as it relates to the Bryan Kohberger matter, take a look at this video.
He's innocent. I don't care what the media says. I read the comments. He didn't do it.
Exactly. Right. That look in his eyes. Totally misjudged.
No, I did it. I admitted to it.
Now, we came up with this idea yesterday, and Frank prepared it. And yes, it's AI for the people that don't get it. But if you get it, you get it. All right? Clearly, there's some people that think that Bryan Kohberger is still innocent, for goodness sakes. Well, that presumption of innocence has gone away, is in the wind. And he is guilty as a matter of law and as a matter of fact of 4 murders and a burglary. So we think it's kind of funny. Some people thought it was funny. Some people didn't. Anyway, it is Tuesday night. I guess I forgot to mention this, that we will be going live tonight at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, so please join us. We're going to put up our call-in number as well, because I get all these people in the comments telling me what an idiot I am, that Bryan Kohberger is innocent. He's been wrongfully accused and convicted based upon his guilty plea. But that it was a travesty of justice. So we're going to put up our caller number tonight at 6 o'clock. And anybody that says Bryan Kohberger is innocent gets top priority. We're going to take your call first. You can try and convince me as to why he is innocent. I'll be curious to see, because we get so many people that say, Scott, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. His attorney sold him out. He had to do it. He was scared. The great grand conspiracy, the threats to his family, all that stuff. I look forward to hearing them all. So join us at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. I can't wait. Next on the docket, the quadruple murder suspect, Austin Drummond, has been captured. Now, Austin Drummond, accused of allegedly killing 4 and dumping their baby girl on a front lawn. That's right. So in a display of remarkable foresight, Austin Robert Drummond, the 28-year-old Tennessee resident accused of orchestrating a quadruple homicide, has finally been apprehended following a leisurely 7-day evasion that undoubtedly kept authorities on their toes. So on July 29th, in the quaint town of Tiptonville, Drummond allegedly dispatched Adrian Williams, who is 20 years old, James Matthew Wilson, Courtney Rose, who is 38, Brandon Wilson, all with the precision one might expect from someone freshly liberated from a 13-year stint in prison for armed robbery, having been released just in September of last year. Though unrelated by blood, Drummond had integrated himself into the family circle by dating one of Rose's sister, a connection that apparently blossomed into something far less endearing. Now, in a particularly thoughtful gesture, he is said to have abandoned the infant daughter of Williams and Wilson on a stranger's lawn in Tigret, some 40 miles from the crime scene, ensuring the child a front row seat to the ensuing chaos. Well, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, ever the picture of efficiency, captured Drummond on Tuesday morning without disclosing the exact location, though a released photograph depicts him drenched and disheveled in what appears to be a forested hideout, as if Mother Nature herself had conspired to highlight his predicament. Prior to this, he was later observed on Sunday evening in Jacksonville, approximately 70 miles distant, clad in camouflage and toting a rifle, prompting police to issue warnings about exercising extreme caution around this paragon of armed and dangerous subtlety. Authorities noted that Drummond might have altered his appearance during his escapade, and indeed, the capture image reveals a freshly shaved goatee, a bold stylistic choice compared to his previous mugshot, and the saga began when law enforcement responded to reports of an abandoned baby in a car seat, initially suspecting Rose, Williams, and Wilson of child endangerment, a hypothesis that dissolved into horror upon discovering the 4 victims' bodies riddled with gunshot wounds in a wooded area back in Tiptonville. Well, Drummond emerged as the primary suspect 2 days later on July 31st, facing charges of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and unlawful possession of a firearm, charges that seem almost quaint given his ongoing bond for an attempted murder committed during his prior incarceration. Now, rewards totaling up to $30,000 were offered for tips leading to his arrest, a sum that evidently motivated the public just enough. In a twist that underscores the depth in human loyalty, 3 individuals, Dara Sanders, Tanaka Brown, and Giovanni Thomas, were detained during the manhunt for allegedly aiding Drummond as accessories after the fact of first-degree murder, though details of their benevolent assistance remains shrouded in mystery. Now, the motive for this familial annihilation eludes investigators despite Drummond's familiarity with the victims. He had reportedly been nothing short of amazing to the family and their children during his romantic involvement, according to a relative's social media post. A sentiment that now rings, well, with quite exquisite irony. Now, Adriana and James were the parents of the abandoned infant. Courtney served as the maternal grandmother, and Braden was Adriana's younger sibling, completing a portrait of domestic devastation that defies easy explanation. Now, we will bring you updates on this. We got to know why. I mean, does it seem like everything's being done in 3s and 4s lately when it comes to killing somebody? Or just stop at 1? Unbelievable. Horrific, tragic, you name it, but by gosh, what are people doing these days? Next on the docket, Florida's Romeo, his little triple wife, Tangle. Let's talk about this. So, a Florida charmer who juggled not one, not two, but 3 wives like a circus act gone wrong has dodged prison, but not the wrath of the women that he duped. Please meet Henry Betsy. This guy's 50 years old, and he was slapped with charges of bigamy, something you don't hear about very often. Anyway, he was ultimately convicted after the trio of unsuspecting spouses uncovered his matrimonial hat trick. Now, Betsy's saga began in November of 2020 when he wooed Tanya on Tinder and sealed the deal at a Jacksonville courthouse. Fast forward 2 years, and he was saying "I do" again, this time to Brandy, who met via the single parenting dating app Stir at the Matinee County Courthouse. Not one to rest on his laurels, Mr. Betsy rounded out his collection with Michelle, a Match.com match at the Hernando County Courthouse, all within weeks of their first date. Now, Michelle told the local news outlets that she fell hard for the silver-tongued 50-year-old, blissfully unaware of his crowded marital roster. The house of cards collapsed when Tanya, suspicious of her husband's antics, turned amateur sleuth. She said she started digging through county records, typing his name in, and boom, there were the marriage licenses for Michelle and Brandy, she told that local news outlet. Anyway, Betsy's triple life was exposed, and the courtroom became his stage for reckoning. Last week, Judge Daniel Merritt sentenced Betsy to 2 years of probation and 100 hours of community service. As he faced the music, a new girlfriend, identity undisclosed, stood by him in the courthouse gallery, proving his charm still has takers. Meanwhile, his wives weren't buying his courtroom apology. "I'm sorry to the ladies, the court, my family, and friends," Betsy said, but Michelle wasn't convinced. "Remorse? I don't see it," she told reporters, noting that the silver lining, he's now a convicted felon. Now, the 3 women, all single or freshly divorced moms from different Florida counties, painted Betsy as a predator targeting vulnerable hearts. He was Prince Charming until he wasn't. Tanya recalling how he seemed perfect, but anything but, apparently. Michelle added that Betsy zeroed in on newly single divorced women for the extra perks like access to their bank accounts. Brandy revealed he pressured her to add him to her finances the day that they wed. The Scorn Trio also pointed fingers at Florida's marriage license system, which failed to flag Betsy's overlapping vows. "There's no safety net in the system," Michelle lamented, adding insult to injury. A 4th woman, Micah Everett, surfaced on Instagram claiming she dated Betsy, aka Del Betts, in 2019. She described a blissful start that soured when his behavior turned erratic, including a terrifying high-speed car chase. Now, Betsy, who pled guilty to felony bigamy in May, also faced a bond revocation after an arrest in Virginia for assault and battery. His probation, which began last Thursday, comes with a social media ban and no contact order with his ex-wives. Tanya's marriage to Betsy ended in divorce, while Brandy and Michelle filed for annulments. As Betsy walks free, probation papers in hand, a new girlfriend in tow, his ex-wives stand united. Their stories a cautionary tale for love, lies, and the system that let the 3-time groom slip through the cracks. One of the great mysteries in life, why troubled men always seem to get all the women. I don't get it. It always cracks me up when we have clients that are in custody, usually for doing something horrible to women or children, but yet they seem to be able to get dates and girlfriends while they are in custody. Now, this case could be a great segue into CrimeTalkSearch.com to do a background search. See if your husband has multiple records out there of being married. I don't know how you could do it, not with 1, but 2, but 3 wives, and apparently some others in tow, that apparently he was working the whole time. What did this guy do for a living that somehow the wives were okay with him going back and forth and apparently being with them? I mean, wouldn't you love to know the details of that, ladies and gentlemen? I don't get it, but don't worry. I'm sure he's probably going to have another 10 women swooning over him as soon as we put this story out. I'm sure it was the lady's fault. He's just misunderstood. And why should he be punished for just loving people? One of the great mysteries of life, ladies and gentlemen. Next on the docket, let's talk Ghislaine Maxwell and her transfer to Club Fed. So Ghislaine Maxwell, the infamous socialite turned convicted sex trafficker, has traded her Florida cell for a cushier spot at the federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas, a place so plush it's dubbed Club Fed. The move has her new neighbors, a mix of non-violent offenders, positively fuming. It's absolutely scandalous that she's here, said Julie Howe, a current resident serving a year for theft, in an interview with The Telegraph. Now, this place is for folks who maybe fudge some numbers, not for orchestrators of human trafficking rings. That's a whole different kind of crime. One that doesn't scream low security risk. Anyway, the Bryan facility, known for housing high-profile white-collar types like Theranos Elizabeth Holmes and reality TV Jen Shah, it's less bars and guards and more track and hand weights. Yet Maxwell's arrival has stirred unease. There's a talk of threats against her, the inmate added, and frankly, some of us are wondering if we're safe with her around. Now, the Bureau of Prisons is keeping mum on why Maxwell has relocated, leaving tongues wagging. Her attorney, David Oscar Marcus, confirmed the transfer, but kept details tighter than a prison lockdown. Speculation points to Maxwell's recent powwow with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, where she reportedly dangled dirt on her late associate Jeffrey Epstein in hopes of, well, maybe some clemency. Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year sentence for her role in Epstein's underage grooming schemes, has been a lightning rod for controversy since her 2021 conviction. Her case is back in the spotlight, especially after the Justice Department's refusal last month to release more Epstein files, prompting some public outcry. Now, the regional vice president of prison officers, Josh Leopard, has stated that Bryan's camp is a prime pick for inmates nearing the end of their sentence or those who've turned snitch. When people toss around Club Fed, this is the kind of place that they mean. It's the penthouse of penitentiaries. Now, Maxwell's stay at the minimum security resort is set to last until 2037 unless her rumored negotiations bear fruit. Meanwhile, whispers of a possible pardon surfaced, but President Trump in a recent interview brushed them off, saying, quote, "Nobody's asked me about clemency for her," he said, "and I've got the power to pardon. Sure, but I'm not losing sleep over this one." Anyway, Maxwell settles into her new digs. The question remains, is Club Fed ready for its most notorious guest, or will her presence turn this low security haven into a high drama hotspot? She's going to get some clemency. Let's be clear. Now, I think it's interesting because her whole trial was there was no sex trafficking ring. And I get it. She has a right to deny it and make the prosecution prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. But it would be interesting to hear her say that, oh yes, there was a sex trafficking ring and all of these people were the customers. I think it's pretty well established that Epstein, and through the assistance of Miss Maxwell, that there was it. But we want to know client list, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we want to know. Next on the docket, this day in legal history, 1861. That's right, August 5th, 1861. Enactment of the first federal income tax. That's right. President Abraham Lincoln signed the Revenue Act of 1861 into law, introducing the first federal income tax in the United States. Now, the legislation was enacted to fund the Union's effort during the Civil War, imposing 3% tax on annual income exceeding $800. 3%. Wouldn't you kill to only have to pay 3%? Anyway, the measure was a response to the significant financial demand of war and marked a pivotal moment in the development of a federal fiscal policy. Now, although this tax was later repealed, thank God, in 1872, unfortunately set a precedent for modern income tax systems established by the 16th Amendment back in 1913 when they started the federal income tax. See, they They imposed a tax, they could take away the tax. We could repeal the 16th Amendment, and there could be no federal income tax, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that's right. How did they do it beforehand? That's right. Tariffs. Tariffs, ladies and gentlemen. Next, August 5th, 1965, a significant legal event in American history occurred when President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law. This landmark legislation aimed to enforce the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which guarantees citizens the right to vote regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. The Voting Rights Act addressed the systemic racial discrimination in voting by prohibiting practices that included a literacy test or a poll tax, which had been used to disenfranchise black voters, particularly in the South. It also established federal oversight of election procedures in jurisdictions with a history of discriminatory practices, requiring them to obtain pre-clearance from the federal government before making changes to the voting laws or procedures. On this date, August 5th, 1981, President Ronald Reagan fires striking air traffic controllers. That's right. The president took decisive action via executive action by firing 11,359 air traffic controllers who were on strike in violation of his order to remain at work. The strike, organized by the Professional Air Traffic Controller Organization, or known as PATCO at the time, was deemed illegal under federal law, which prohibits strikes by federal employees. Reagan's decision to terminate the strikers and replace them had significant legal and labor implications, weakening the power of the public sector unions and setting a precedent for strict enforcement of anti-strike laws for federal workers. The action disrupted air travel for a few months, but reinforced the authority of the executive branch in labor disputes. That's right. Everybody should be able to be fired at any given notice unless you have an employment contract, right? That's what it said. And you can't strike. And if you do strike, you should be fired. And then you get in the whole issue of federal employees needing a union. You already got a sweet gig. So you get your coworkers to negotiate with you to create even sweeter package that they vote on and agree with because they're going to benefit from it as well. But we digress. Next, on this day in 1992, the federal civil rights indictment in the Rodney King case. That's right. That's when 4 Los Angeles police officers were indicted on federal civil rights charges for their involvement in the brutal beating of Rodney King, a black motorist, in 1991. The incident, captured on video, sparked widespread public outrage and highlighted systemic issues of police misconduct and racial injustice. The federal indictments followed the officer's acquittal in the state trial, which had triggered the 1992 Los Angeles riots. And this legal event underscored the role of federal civil rights laws in addressing local law enforcement abuse and became a catalyst for the national discussion of police reform and racial equality. In 1960, the nationalization of foreign property by Cuba escalates. That's right. Cuban leader Fidel Castro nationalized all American and foreign-owned properties in Cuba in response to the United States economic embargo. This action, while occurring outside the United States borders, had some profound legal and diplomatic repercussions for the United States, intensifying the Cold War tensions. Now, the nationalization prompted legal challenges in U.S. courts over property rights and compensations, as well as debates over international law and economic sanctions. And it also marked a significant moment in U.S.-Cuba relations and influencing legal framework for handling foreign assets seizures and shaping U.S. foreign policy towards Cuba for decades. Yep, they don't have apparently the Fifth Amendment. The government can't take your property without compensation. Yeah, because that's what dictators do. They do whatever the hell they want, and they don't have to compensate you. Hence the reason founding fathers put it in the Bill of Rights, saying the government has to pay for your property. Because why? The Bill of Rights is a checklist of everything that dictators do, and why we should always enforce the Bill of Rights in favor of the individual and not the government. It is a limitation on the government's power, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that. Well, that leads into our legal quote of the day: the integrity of law enforcement officers is the cornerstone of a just society for their commitment to truth and fairness, and it upholds the public trust essential to the rule of law. I bring this up because in the state of Colorado, we have a statute that says police officers, when they're engaging with the public or conducting an investigation, doesn't mean like, undercover officers, but they have to turn on their body cam. And so I was in court yesterday litigating a case about the sanction, because the statute says that if the officer fails to turn on a body-worn camera, that the defense is entitled to negative inference that there was some misconduct that was taking place. But then the statute says it makes it completely useless, basically saying, but it's a rebuttable presumption. So even though the officer comes in and says, yeah, I know about the law, but I didn't do it. And they were doing a drug search of a dog, which might as well be kabuki theater. Well, he wiggled, he did his happy dance. That's the kind of nonsense this is, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and did I mention the dog's alert? Says that there were drugs in there, and it had to be heroin, methamphetamine, or cocaine. And when they searched the car, there was no drugs, coincidentally enough. So you probably know how I feel about drug sniffs and dogs, let alone when the officer admits he didn't turn on, he's aware of the policy, and there is no sanction imposed. Unbelievable. Am I missing something? Because they say the misconduct is not turning on the body-worn camera. It was blatant, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, needless to say, I'm a little frustrated. But next, let's roll into our dumb criminal of the day. Now, in the sweltering heat of Houston, Texas, where the law is as unyielding as the summer sun, please meet Deputy Jennifer Escalera of Harris County, Constable's Precinct Number 5, when she embarked on what she presumed would be another routine patrol. However, on this fateful day in early August of 2025, her disposition was markedly altered by personal discontent. Seated in her police cruiser, clad in full uniform, she recorded a video on TikTok, a platform often reserved for lighter fare, wherein she candidly lamented her lack of intimate fulfillment from the previous evening. Didn't get cracked last night, she quipped with a wry grin, so everyone's getting a ticket. Well, one might surprise that Escalera, a dedicated officer and mother who frequently shared glimpses of her professional life and family on social media, intended this as a mere jest, a fleeting attempt at humor amid the monotony of duty. Yet in the digital age where words travel faster than a speeding violation, her proclamation swiftly amassed views, shared, and scrutiny. The video depicting her in her official attire within a government vehicle blurred the lines between personal expression and professional conduct, prompting some swift backlash. Unbeknownst to our protagonist, her cracked commentary cracked open a Pandora's box of consequences. The Harris County Constable Precinct Number 5 administration, upon awareness of this clip, initiated an internal affairs investigation, stating succinctly, quote, "Our administration is aware Internal Affairs has opened an investigation. We have no other comment at this time," end quote. Now, Escalera's TikTok account, once replete with posts showcasing her in uniform, some even featuring her young son, saw several entries vanished into ether, a digital purge in the face of mounting controversy. Now, as the story unfolded, one could not help but ponder the irony. A guardian of the law, sworn to impartiality, threatening universal citations over unmet physical desires. It serves as a cautionary parable for public servants in the area of viral visibility, reminding all that a moment's wit unchecked might ticket one's career straight to the impound lot. So while Escalera remains on active duty pending the probe outcome, her escapade earns her the dubious honor of Dumb Criminal of the Day. Not for breaking the law, but for nearly featuring her own professional facade with a single ill-timed quip. That's all we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a wonderful day. Please join us tonight for our live 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And remember, the Constitution matters.